Hello everyone and welcome back to Word Problem Wednesday. I hope you're having a great week so far. Last week for Word Problem Wednesday, we reviewed perimeter and adding up the outside edges of a shape. And this week we are going to be talking about area. So last week, like we said, the sergeant told the police officer to check the perimeter of the building and he had to go around the outside edge. But now the sergeant told him to check the area around the entrance of the bank for evidence. Is area different from perimeter? And hopefully you know the answer to that question is yes. Perimeter and area are two different things. Area is the number of square units needed to cover a figure without overlapping. So maybe you have a room in your house where the floor is covered with square tiles. Maybe it's in a kitchen or a bathroom. Or if we were in our classroom, I would show you that our classroom floor is covered in square tiles. So we can find the area, how much space takes up that room, by counting those squares on the floor. And so we call it all in square units is what we label it with because, like I said, we're counting these squares in that shape. So if I wanted to find the area for this square over to the right side over here, one way that we can do that is just counting out those squares. So we can count those out one by one. And we'll find when we get to the end, our area is 16 square units. Now, if we were doing this on a piece of paper, what I would suggest is that every time you count one of those squares, you would mark it with your pencil. Put a little dot in the middle, maybe shade it in so you know you've counted it once and you don't count it again. Because like we said, it's the area inside of a shape without overlapping. You don't want to double count something on accident. So one way that we can see area is by using a pegboard, is what they're trying to show here, where it's got little sticks sticking out and you could surround the pegs with a rubber band or with a string. But if I wanted to find the area inside this blue pegboard shape here, one suggestion I would say is by connecting the dots and seeing how many squares you make. So if we connected the dots here, I would have one box here, two boxes here, and three here for the area to be 3 square units because there's 3 squares. Same with the orange shape over here. I would connect the dots to make a bunch of tiny boxes. And so you just kind of have to use your imagination right now since we're on a computer and try your best to count out. We would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 for 9 square units. And for the red one off to the right, once again, connect the dots in your mind with your imagination, and we would just count out those squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 for 8 square units. So if you ever saw something like that, one strategy I would use, connect the dots to count the squares. So these ones are a little bit nicer for you to do. The squares are definitely there. So what I want you to do in a second is to pause the video and I want you to count for these 3 different colored shapes. I want you to find the area of this pink shape, of this dark blue, and then of this kind of blue-green shape. So go ahead and pause the video and find the area. All right, hopefully you paused the video and you counted out the area for these shapes. So we will start with the pink over to the left. So if you counted out each of these pink squares, you should have gotten that the area was 9 square units. Over in the middle with the dark blue, if you counted out those dark blue squares, you should have gotten that the area was 6 square units. And then on the right with the blue-green squares, if you counted just those blue-green squares, you should have gotten an area of 11 square units. So pat yourself on the back if you got those right. Nice job. Now, sometimes they are not always as nice and in perfect squares. So if you notice with this quadrilateral up here that we have some whole square pieces, but we also have some halves as well, okay? And hopefully you remember that two halves make a whole. If I took this half and this half, that would end up making one whole square. So that's what we're going to need to imagine for this next question. So let's first off find out how many halves do we have in this picture. So we have 3, it looks like. 1, 2, 3. So that is something that we need to keep in mind when we are finding the area for this, to see if we can put some of those halves together. So if we put 1/2 and 1/2 together, that would make one whole. So the strategy for this one is we need to first find out how many whole squares there are, not including those halves yet. So if I count the whole squares, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we have 12 whole squares. Now, I can take these 2 halves to make one more whole square, and then I still have half of a square left over up here, but we can't forget about it. So when I need to put that together to find my area, 12 plus 1 is going to make 13 whole squares plus our half. So we would just say our area is 13.5 square units. So always count out the whole squares first, and then try and piece together the halves to see if you can make another whole square. So each of these 3 shapes have half squares involved. So what I want you to do in a second, you're going to pause the video again, but you are going to count out the whole squares. And then imagine if I piece this together and I piece this together, what is my area going to be? Now this is a little tricky. You need to use your imagination, but go ahead and pause the video to find the area for the pink, green, and blue shapes. Go ahead and pause now. All right, hopefully you paused the video to find the area for these kind of weird looking shapes. So we're gonna start with the pink on the left. So we start with our whole squares first. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now I can put these 2 halves together to make 9, and these 2 halves together to make 10. So our area for this pink shape is 10 square units. Moving over to the green, I count my whole squares first. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'm going to piece together, this would be 5. These 2 halves would be 6. These 2 would make 7. And these 2 would make 8. So our area for the green is 8 square units. And then for the blue, there's a lot going on over here. So I'm counting my whole square, starting with the top row up here so I can try and keep track. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Now I can put these 2 halves together to make 17, and these 2 halves together to make 18. So hopefully you got the area of 18 square units. Pat yourself on the back if you got all 3 of those right. Nice job. Those halves can be pretty tricky, so if you missed one of those, that's okay. No big deal. That's why we're practicing. Now, sometimes they don't give you the squares to count out. Sometimes they just give you the lengths. So for this green rectangle over here, they said the length is 7 inches and it is 3 inches tall for the width. So in perimeter, we add, but we talked about in class before with area, we multiply these numbers as another strategy. So to find the area for this, we can multiply the length times the width. So 7 times 3, or 3 times 7, would get you the answer 21 square inches. 7 times 3 gets you 21 square inches. And we switched from square units to inches this time because they told us inches. If the next one's feet, we would say square feet. But if they don't tell you what it's measured in, we just say units. So for these 3 pictures, these 3 questions, you can use either strategy of you can count out the squares if you want, or you can multiply how tall is it times how far across is it for the pink, the green, and the blue question. So go ahead, pause the video and find those 3 areas. All right, hopefully you took the time to calculate the area for those 3 shapes. Starting with the pink on the left, we have 5 rows, it's 5 blocks tall, and we have 4 columns, 4 blocks across, so 5 times 4, you should have gotten the answer 20 square units. Very nice. For the green in the middle, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows, and we had 3 columns. There's 3 in each row. So 6 times 3 gets you the answer of 18 square units, or you could have counted out the squares to get 18 squares. And then on the right with the blue, we have 3 rows and 3 columns, or 3 by 3. And hopefully you know that 3 times 3 gets you the answer, 9 square units. Very nice. Pat yourself on the back if you got those right. Nice job. So you can always count out the squares if they give you the squares, or remember, just multiply the length times the width. Go ahead and try out these next 3. This time, though, you can't count the squares. You have to use the multiplication strategy. So we're multiplying 5 times 3 for the pink, 1 times 7 for the green, and 7 times 6 for the blue. Go ahead and pause the video and calculate those areas. All right, so let's review. For the pink on the left, we had 5 inches tall times 3 inches across, and 5 times 3 gets you the answer, 15 square inches. And remember, hopefully you labeled inches because they gave us the IN at the end. In the middle with the green, we had 1 centimeter times 7 centimeters, and 1 times 7, you should know, is 7. So 7 square centimeters for the green. And last but not least, on the right, we have the blue rectangle. That is 7 inches tall times 6 inches across. And 7 times 6 can be tricky. So remember, my strategy I always do is 7 times 5. And then I add an extra 7 to that. But the answer you should have gotten is 42 square inches. Very nice, 42 square inches. So now, taking it up a notch, we're working a little bit backwards. We know for this shape, we have 3 centimeters tall, but I don't know what our measurement is across. However, they told us the area is 27 centimeters. So what we need to figure out is 3 times what gets us to 27. So if we figure that out, we have our area is 27. What times 3 is going to get us 27? I'll give you a second to count that out. All right, hopefully you took the time or paused the video to calculate out what times 3 gets us 27, and that missing number is 9. 3 times 9 gets us 27. So our missing side was 9. So you're going to do the same thing you just did on the last slide. So for these 3 shapes, we are missing a side. So we need to find out 10 times what is going to equal the area 60. 3 times what equals 12, or 7 times what equals 56. Or think backwards if you want to do division. 56 divided by what equals 7? 12 divided by 3 equals what? 60 divided by 10 equals what? Either way, go ahead, pause the video and find those missing numbers. All right, so working backwards, finding those missing numbers. We needed to figure out for the blue, 10 times what equals 60. If I count by 10 to get to 60, I need it 6 times. 10 times 6 equals 60. So our unknown side was 6 inches. For the orange in the middle, they said it was 3 tall, and I need to figure out 3 times what equals 12. That missing number is 4. The unknown side was 4 because 3 times 4 equals 12. Or like I said, you could work backwards. 12 times 3 equals 4 to find the missing side. And for the red's rectangle on the right, we needed to figure out 7 times what equals 56. Remember, that was a math question of the week. We answer this question every day. 7 times what equals 56? That missing number is 8. 7 times 8 equals 56. All right, we're getting towards the end of this. Hopefully you're hanging in there. This is the biggest challenge so far. So we are working now with something called composite figures, and that's where a shape is made up of 2 or more shapes. So if you look at this blue shape at the bottom of your screen, do you see how this composite figure can be split into 2 smaller rectangles? It kind of looks like 2 rectangles that got squished together. So in order to find the area, what we need to do is cut them apart. So I need you to take your finger, imagine yourself slicing that rectangle off. So we now have 2 smaller rectangles. See how we cut it right there? We just cut this top part off. So now we can find the area much, much nicer. So we have our rectangle like we did on the last slide. And so what we need to do is we need to chop that top part off. And they gave us the measurements. For this smaller rectangle, it was 4 inches and 2 inches, just like they had labeled over here. And for this bottom part, they said it was 4 inches and 8 inches, 4 and 8. So what we can do with those 2 rectangles, we're going to do the same thing we did before and just multiply those sides. So when we multiply the area and find the area of the 2 smaller rectangles, 4 times 2, that would get me an area of 8. And then 4 times 8, what would that area be? Take a second and find 4 times 8. What would that be? Hopefully you calculated out that 4 times 8 would get you the area of 32 square inches. So we now have our 2 areas, 8 and 32. So remember, the goal was to find the area of this whole shape put together. So if I want to use these 2 areas to find the bigger area, what do you think I'm going to do with this 32 and this 8? All we have to do is just add them together. 32 plus 8, that would get me my final area of 40 square inches. So if you were asked to find the area of a shape like this, chop it off into two smaller rectangles and then just multiply for the area and add them together. And we're going to do another question just like that again. So we have this shape over here. And so remember, we need to chop it to help us to find two smaller rectangles inside. Now, you could either cut, there's two different ways you could cut it. You could cut it right here or cut it right here. Either way would work, but for this right now, we are going to chop the top part off. So we have this piece and then we have this piece. So we chopped it, that's our first step. Now we need to multiply to find the area. So we have to find the area of here, 4 times 4, and our area 8 times 6. So pause the video and find the area for those two shapes. When you found the area for those two shapes, 4 times 4 should get you the area of 16. And then for the bottom, 8 times 6, that should get you your area of 48. So when our last step, what we need to do is put those two areas together. When I put together 16 and 48, what do those add together to make for our final area? When you added those together, hopefully you found that your final area was 64 square inches. 64 square inches. Now, here's where things start to get tricky, all right? Now, we sliced off the top, and we know the bottom is 5 and 10. But for the top part up here, we just know it's 2 centimeters tall. We don't know how far across this is, so we need to become detectives in order to find that missing side. So here's what we know. If the base down here is 10 centimeters, then this would also have to be 10 centimeters, right? So we have 10 as our long wall. Now they told us that this small part and this small part are 2 centimeters. So this is 2 and this is 2. So if I had 10 centimeters and I chopped off 2 centimeters from one end and I chopped off 2 centimeters from the other end, what am I left with? So once again, if I had 10 and I take 2 away from each end, 10, take away 2, take away 2. What does that leave me with for the middle part? Hopefully you figured out that that means that it's 6 across. If we had 10 centimeters, minus 2 on one end would leave us with 8. Minus 2 on the other end would leave us with 6. So our top rectangle is 2 times 6. So if it's 2 times 6, our area is going to be what for that rectangle? Our area is going to be 12. And I accidentally clicked ahead where it already told us 5 times 10 gives us the area of 50 for this bigger rectangle. So for our final area, 50 plus 12 gets us what as our final area? Hopefully you found out that that is 62. And if this is one of the trickiest parts, is trying to puzzle out and figure out those missing sides. So if that was a little bit confusing, go ahead and rewind the video and watch it again and try and figure out. But I think we have one more practice question like this for us to do. Yes. All right, so we have this crazy shape. We cut it into smaller rectangles. Okay, so they cut it into 2 kind of towers and then our middle part here. They told us we're 3 inches tall and 1 inch across on each tower. So we know our area for those already. If we know 3 times 1, our area for each of those is going to be what? 3. Hopefully you said that. But for the middle piece, we have to find out how tall this is. So we know that the tallest tower is 3 inches tall. Okay? Now, they told us up here that the medium part is 2 inches. Okay? So if we have 3 inches at our longest part and we cut off 2 inches from that, what do I have left for the height of my middle part? 2 plus what is going to add up to 3? Or 3 minus 2 would get us 1. You take the longest side, take away the smaller part, and you're going to be left with your remainder for your missing side. Okay, I'll say that one more time. You find the longest side, cut off the smaller part that's parallel across from that, and that will give you your missing side. So 3 inches, take away the 2 inches, leaves us with 1 for the height of our middle section. So now that we know that, we can find the area of our middle piece, 2 inches times 1 inch. That leaves us with an area of 2 square inches. Now we have 3 different areas happening. So I have to put that all together for my final area. 3 plus 2 plus 3 gets me my final answer of our area, 8 square inches. And once again, if that was a little confusing, finding the missing side, rewind the video and watch it again. So, final review. You already know this. It's the simplest parts. If I asked you to find the area and perimeter of the same shape together, okay, remember, area, you just multiply the sides, 7 times 3, okay? So the area for that would be 21. But if I wanted you to find the perimeter of the same shape, remember, that's all 4 sides, we would need to put together 7 plus 3 plus 7 plus 3. Now when you add that together, 7 plus 3 plus 7 plus 3, there we go. Sorry, technical difficulties. That all adds up to 20. 7 plus 3 plus 7 plus 3, because 7 plus 3 is 10, and then we have to do it for the other 2. So 10 and 10 make 20. All right, I want you to pause the video right now and find the area and perimeter of this rectangle. So you need to find the area by multiplying the length times the width, and then add together all 4 sides to find the perimeter. So pause the video. All right, so for the area, you needed to multiply 7 times 4, and hopefully 7 times 4, you got the answer for 28 square square inches, because it is labeled with inches. Okay. And then for the perimeter, you needed to add together 4 plus 7 plus 4 plus 7 to get the answer 22. So perimeter is 22 inches. Remember, area, you need the square part, but perimeter, it's just the length. And the last one, find the area and perimeter of this rectangle. Go ahead and pause the video now. All right, so for the area, multiplying the length, 3 times the width, 5, 3 times 5, hopefully you got the answer of 15 for 15 square yards. YD stands for yards. And then for the perimeter, we needed to add up 3 plus 5 plus 3 plus 5 to get the perimeter of 16 yards. So sometimes questions ask you to do both, but great job figuring those out and hanging in there. Now for a real life situation, okay? John is getting new carpet in his rectangular bedroom. So we have a rectangle. The perimeter of the floor is 38 feet. So all four sides add up to 38. The length of the room is 10 feet. What is the area of the floor? Oh my goodness. All right, let's not get stuck on the escalator. Let's draw this out. Okay, we have a rectangle because they said his room is rectangular. The perimeter is 38. And the length is 10 feet. So if this is 10 feet, then this side we also know is 10 feet. Okay, we need to find out this missing side though. So we've used 10 feet and 10 feet, which is 20 feet total. Okay, if we know it's all going to add up to 38 and we've already used 20, how much do I have left to share with my two sides left over? 38 minus 20 gets me what? 18 feet. So we have 18 feet, but we have to split that between these two walls. 18 divided by 2 gets us there we go, 9 feet. So our two sides are 9, but we need the area of the floor. So 10 times 9 gets me what for the area? 10 times 9 gets you an area of 90 square feet. Okay, drawing it out really helps a lot. All right, so now we finally gotten to the part where you are answering these questions yourself. Okay, and you're going to answer these on the Google form where this video is on. So question A says, Misty wants to glue lace to the outside edges of a birthday card she's making for her mom. Her rectangular card measures 6 inches across times 9 inches tall. How much ribbon will she need? So let me correct what I said because I said a word just a second ago that might be confusing. Her card is 6 inches across, 9 inches tall. Okay, but I want to know the outside edges of the whole card, just the edges. So are you finding the perimeter or are you finding the area? That's something to think about. Okay, so that's the first question. The second question you're going to be answering says, each desk in Mr. Larman's classroom has a length of 3 feet and a width of 2 feet. So the top of the desk that you look at is 3 feet across and 2 feet across as well. So first you need to find out the area. What's just one of those desks? If it's 3 feet times 2 feet, what is that area? But then it asks, if he pushes 4 desks together with the same area, what is the combined area of the desk? So one desk is just 3 times 2. But then I need 4 of those. So that is what you need to find out. And the last question for you to answer, this has nothing to do with area and perimeter. It's just to get you thinking. So it says, there are some new cars and motorcycles parked in front of a car dealership. There are a total of 20 wheels. If there are 4 cars, how many How many motorcycles are there? So there's 20 wheels. How many wheels would 4 cars use? And then I would think about how many wheels are left over for the motorcycles. With those wheels left, I need to group them into groups of 2 for my motorcycles to find how many motorcycles are there. If any of this was confusing, always remember you can rewind the video and listen to it again. Hope you guys enjoy these challenges. I know that it was a lot today, but I know you guys are working hard and I am so, so proud of you. If you ever need help, you can always ask me. Have a great day, guys. Miss you.